Tastemakers was funded in part by...
What does a craftsperson look like? Is it this? Or this? Or is it this? Is it possible a craftsperson might also look like this? Edward Jones salutes the makers who share their expertise and take pride in their craft.
When you hear the term seafood, you probably think of fish, but sea vegetables are gaining prominence as a way to bring a bit of brine to your dining room table. In this episode of Tastemakers, we head to the rocky coast of Maine to meet farmers who are cultivating kelp and having a positive impact on our oceans. I'm Kat Neville, and for the past 2 decades, I've been telling the story of local food. In that time, American food culture has exploded in tiny towns and big cities from coast to coast. In Tastemakers, I explore the maker movement and take you along for the journey to meet the makers who define the flavor of American cuisine. Here in Maine, lobster is king. Generations have worked these cold waters, pulling bounty from the ocean, but the oceans are changing and the future of fisheries are uncertain. Enter kelp. The team at Atlantic Sea Farms is working with local fishermen to help them set up kelp farms, supporting the region's economic vitality while also pulling carbon from the ocean.
I care deeply about the coast of Maine, and right now we're totally dependent on the lobster monoculture up and down the state. When there's not much else to do out there to make a living in these very rural areas, you can see the writing on the wall that things can be troubling in the future, especially when the Gulf of Maine is warming faster than 99% of the bodies of water in the world. So for me, aquaculture just feels like exactly what needs to happen for our state in order to help diversify the fishery, make us more sustainable as an entire coastal ecosystem, and bring this really fresh, wonderful kelp product to American consumers. The company's been around for 9 years under the brand Atlantic Sea Farms, and it was the first commercial seaweed farm in the country. We're producing about 14 times more kelp than we ever have in the past. And as of very recently, we just launched this retail line because we realized that people have eaten it so much in restaurants that they're ready to get it in their homes, including 3 fermented products and 2 frozen products that are really easy to use for the home chef. I think it's taken a while for American kelp to really rise in prominence, but we're now at the point where people are asking for it, which is a really nice change. So right now, if you're eating seaweed or kelp, you're probably getting it imported from Asia. Like 98% of what we eat in the US is actually imported from Asia. And it's dried, and it tastes fishy, and it tastes salty. And I knew that taste of kelp, but then when I came to Maine and started tasting what was being grown here and fresh out of the water, it's like nothing you've ever had. So think about if you've only had like a dehydrated apple or a dehydrated banana and you never had the real fruit, you know, the full juicy fruit. You'd probably say, well, this is good, but it wouldn't taste at all like what we know of when you pull off an apple off the tree. Similarly with kelp, what we provide is a fresh kelp product, and we take it right out of the ocean. When the kelp comes out of the water, it's this beautiful brown color, but it's not the color that we're used to seeing in the bright green seaweed salads, which are dyed with yellow 5 and blue 1 and all the stuff that you don't want in your salad. So our product, when we blanch it, it naturally turns really beautiful green, like sort of like the color of grass. And it's a flavor carrier, but it's also a flavor enhancer. So it's a slight umami, but really can just be used in place of any fresh vegetable or frozen vegetable that you would usually use.
Kelp is a plant first and foremost. It's a photosynthesizing organism. It's a macroalgae that grows in the ocean. It's very healthy for you, it's very healthy for the ocean, and it's a key part of ocean ecosystems throughout the world. A really interesting thing about kelp is for the first 24 hours of its life, it's actually a spore and it's swimming around in the water. And then after 24 hours, they settle on something, they stay there for the rest of their life. What we're doing is, instead of having that kelp attached to the bottom of the ocean, we're growing that kelp on ropes, on lines. A, it gets a lot more sunlight so it can grow faster, and then B, it's not touching the bottom, so you get a lot less organisms that want to eat it. We plant it in October, and then once the water starts warming back up in the spring, growth takes off.
The Gulf of Maine is warming faster than 99% of all of the other bodies of water on the planet. And so what does that mean for the local fishing industry? Well, while the lobster industry itself is thriving, it is critical for fisheries to diversify their income streams in order to survive.
Fishermen used to fish for all sorts of things in Maine, for ground fish, for scallops, for sea urchins, and for lobster. Now, because of overfishing and because of climate change, a lot of those other fisheries have dried up. And right now, the main fishery that really keeps a lot of our coasts thriving is the lobster fishery. And that's great because a lot of fishermen are doing really well off of the lobster fishery, but that also makes them highly vulnerable to change. So a lot of fishermen are looking for other things to do. And kelp is just like a match made in heaven for lobster fishermen. The primary lobster fishing season here in Maine is from June through November, and kelp gives many fishermen in Maine an opportunity to do something else in this off-season. For the most part, fishermen in Maine have almost all the skills they need to succeed as a kelp farmer. They know the water better than anyone off of the coast of Maine, and they also have the boats and the equipment necessary. In our first year of buying kelp and working with partner farmers, we had, I think, 3 fishermen that were actively working with us and selling kelp to us. This year we had 15 partner farmers, and next year we're looking at having probably over 25. And as a matter of fact, we now kind of have a waiting list of fishermen that want to sell kelp to us.
I am dressed in many layers because it is about to get really wet and really cold. We're heading out on the water with Bree and one of her farmers, Karen Cooper. So we're here in Wheelers Bay, and I'm sitting here with Karen Cooper, the first lobsterman and kelp farmer in the state of Maine. And what attracted you to seaweed, to kelp generally?
So my best friend Michelle got breast cancer, and she decided that she was gonna eat raw and nothing but raw. So we were having lunch one day and she was eating seaweed salad, which I thought looked disgusting and probably tasted disgusting. And she's like, no, it doesn't. So I tried it and I was like, you're right, it does taste good. So I looked up online about seaweed and I came across these 2 wonderful people who have helped me along the way and just got me started, and this is my 4th year harvesting kelp.
And what is the process of harvesting the kelp?
You go over, you untie your lines, you put it through your block on your hauler and just cut it off as it comes up.
That's it?
Yeah, simple.
Probably easier than fishing for lobster.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, I can put the seed in there and I know it's gonna grow. I can put a trap somewhere, it doesn't mean I'm gonna catch a lobster. I wish it worked like that. I wish it was the same.
Kelp is an incredible plant. It actually grows very, very quickly, and it acts as a carbon sink. So through photosynthesis, it pulls in carbon, nitrogen, and phosphorus and outputs oxygen, and there's a halo that's created around these kelp forests of remediated water. We just finished watching Keith and Ben and also Karen harvest all of this kelp. How much do you think you brought in today?
Approximately 1,300 to 1,500 pounds.
So how long does it take for these guys to grow? They're huge.
We seeded this actually in mid-December, and we're harvesting now.
And right now it's about the tail end of May.
Right, it is.
The kelp actually is a net positive for the oceans because it's pulling in all that
Yes, it is.
carbon and all that nitrogen. I mean, this is something that is really exploding. It's creating such new opportunities
It
for
is.
people like you who make their living out of the ocean.
Yep, it is for us because our lobstering season is closed down now to about 5 months, and we need something else.
And so how does the relationship between you and the folks at Atlantic Sea Farms work?
They basically contract us to buy it, and then they send me the seed, and then they buy it all from us and take it all and keep track and make sure we're doing it right. We do a lot of communication with James, coming back and forth to make sure the product is right and on time and taken care of.
So do you enjoy this?
Yes, I do. Something different, something new.
Yeah.
I'm getting tired of the lobstering and, not making any money at it. Just like an adventure. Once in a while. You can't just sit on your laurels forever. You got to try something different. And we appreciate these guys, hooking up with us and giving us a chance.
So all of the kelp that is harvested out of these cold, clean Maine waters is brought back here. This is where it's processed. Let's go inside. So we're here in the Atlantic Sea Farms processing facility in our snazzy blue outfits. So tell us what's going on behind us.
So today we're working on wraps, which is a specific product for chefs. It's a product that we take very carefully off the farm with sugar kelp, a big wide leaf. Then we blanch it, which turns it a bright green, and slowly wrap it. So it's a very high-end product that's for high-end chefs that are using it to wrap fish or chicken or things like that. On other days, we bring in a bunch of strap kelp, which we send through the shredder, spits out a bunch of shredded kelp that kind of keeps it this really fine texture. Then we blanch it through our mechanical blanching machine, and then we pack it up and ready to go, either for fermentation, raw, without the blanching, or for our ready cut kelp, which is the defrost and eat seaweed product that we have.
And so do the two different kinds of kelp taste different? Why are you cultivating two kinds?
They actually taste no different at all, but the texture for both our seaweed salad, our sichi, our kraut, and our ready cut is really wonderful with that strap kelp. The sugar kelp has just a little kind of more beautiful look to it if we're using it for the whole leaf. And it has more expanse too, so if you're wrapping a large fish, you can kind of wrap it around that.
And so what they're doing is they're taking the stem. What is the stem called?
The stem is called the stipe.
Which has this hollow area in the middle. And I had a chance to taste some of this. It's just super crunchy.
It's super crunchy, it's delicious, and maybe I'll grab one for you here. Okay. Here's the blanched stipe. You see how it turns green when it hits the hot water?
Yes.
Isn't that unbelievable?
It's so cool.
But this is what it looks like when it comes out of the farm. And it has a little bit of a hole there. So, I mean, it works great for straws and alternative use for straws. But a lot of chefs will blanch it themselves because we actually sell it raw, and then chop it up into a scallion type thing. So you might not even know if it's on your plate, but it's nice and crunchy. It adds a nice salty crunch flavor to it.
So the season for kelp is really interesting. This active part really only takes place, what, 3 months a year?
That's right. So we start harvesting in the beginning of April and we're done in the middle of June. So it's actually faster than that. It's long days for 3 months, especially for the harvesters who are out there first thing in the morning. Last year we processed 20,000 pounds of kelp, this year 350,000 pounds. So, our ultimate goal is, all right, the more we can actually sell of this, the more farmers we can get in the water, or the farmers we have can expand and make a viable income.
It's such a win-win because you're creating new economic opportunity here in Maine. You're diversifying what these farmers are able to do. It's environmentally beneficial, and it's creating new opportunities for chefs.
That's
it's
right.
a product that they couldn't really get a hold of before.
Never. They're like, fresh seaweed? That's amazing. I've never worked with that.
Here at Legal Seafoods in Boston, executive chef Rich Valente is using kelp in a number of dishes on his menu, including those full leaves of sugar kelp that we saw harvested the other day. We are going to go through some dishes that feature some of the Atlantic Sea Farms seaweed.
Exactly. Yeah, we've been introduced to this about 1.5 years ago, and it's been a great story for us. And so this is one of the dishes that we do with their kelp.
This is the salmon that's wrapped in those whole leaves of sugar kelp that we saw Keith pulling out of Wheeler Bay. And this is an exclusive product for you guys, right?
This is. These come to us like this, these whole kelp. We cut them into strips and we wrap them like this around the fish. We serve this with a lemongrass broth. We pair it with some shrimp and some mushrooms and bok choy. We have some rice noodles with it. And a little bit of hot Thai chili peppers.
Nice. What a beautiful dish. In the ocean yesterday, and now it's on the plate here at Legal Seafoods today.
Yes.
I love that.
Beautiful. This is one of our more popular dishes, actually. It's a vegan dish, vegetarian dish, and we're seeing more and more people be interested in this. And so we thought it was a nice addition to offer some seaweed salad with it as well. So here we have just brown rice, and it's cooked with leeks and garlic.
Oh, nice.
And then we add those shiitakes and the spinach that we heated up, and fermented seaweed salad.
Being able to keep the seaweed salad, it still keeps the sea in this vegan dish. It's a vegetable, but it still is absolutely coming from the sea. It is seafood.
It's a great point, and that's exactly what inspired us to do this. Was it still connects with the ocean. We have a little bit of kimchi, and we'll finish this off with some tofu. This tofu is from Maine as well. It's a local family that makes the tofu for us.
Oh, that's great.
And we'll top that off with some sesame. Our sesame chili vinaigrette, and then we'll serve this with some gochujang. Gochujang is just a Korean chili mixed with different types of soy and other items, and so you mix that all together and you'll just get a great flavor and a great dish.
That's awesome. It's just a wonderful kind of example of the versatility of this sea vegetable.
It shows the different applications. When people hear it, they go, oh, seaweed, what am I going to do with that? That's the thing that sticks to my leg when I'm in the ocean, right? And we're trying to help to show that it can be part of a nutritious meal, give you different dimensions of flavor and texture.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Here at Mommy in downtown Portland, Austin Miller is incorporating fresh local seaweed into his Japanese-style izakaya menu. Let's go in and check it out.
Mommy is izakaya Japanese-style pub food. Super simple, delicious. Seaweed is an integral part of Japanese cuisine. We've been kind of searching for local seaweed for a long time. I mean, obviously it's right there, but we don't have the time to go out and harvest it ourselves. With the Atlantic Sea Farms and Bree and all the folks that work really hard over there, it's been awesome, and it lends itself super well to our food. Fresh seaweed is a really good vessel for many things. It really takes on whatever flavors and textures you want it to. Supporting what's in our environment is really important. It's just small baby steps that we need people to take in the country, you know, to really like push us forward in our food sensibility and like where we're getting food and buying food. And I think just everyone working together, all the chefs, all the restaurateurs, we're all working towards the same goal of, you know, utilizing what's in Maine and what's around us. There's farms for everything, you know, and I think it's important that we use it.
A quarter of the carbon that we're pumping into the atmosphere ends up in our oceans, and here at Bigelow Laboratory, Nicole Price is using kelp to help solve that problem.
Ocean acidification is a process by which the carbon dioxide in our atmosphere, about 25% of it, gets absorbed in the surface waters of the oceans. It spurs a series of chemical reactions that make seawater relatively more acidic. The problem is when seawater becomes even slightly more acidic, it becomes corrosive to shellfish who want to form their shells. So imagine trying to grow your body without bones. This is the fate that some of these shellfish are suffering in a future more acidic ocean. The Gulf of Maine is particularly vulnerable to both ocean acidification problems and to global warming because of the unique bathymetry of our area and the fact that our seawater has an extraordinarily low buffering capacity. So it means that the Gulf of Maine is warming faster than just about anywhere in the globe, and our waters are becoming more and more acidic. This means for a state whose economy is almost entirely dependent on the working waterfront that we are in a pretty vulnerable and tenuous situation. We are right now most excited about aquaculture as a sustainable, viable solution moving forward. And when you're thinking about kelp aquaculture, they can tend to have an actually therapeutic property for the ocean by absorbing carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and phosphorus, and their waste material is oxygen to the ocean. So these kinds of things create beneficial water quality impacts where you're growing kelp in the water.
Coastal communities have always been something that I valued, something that I grew up in, and something that I want to keep sustainable long into the future. I also know that with so many changes happening in the world today, we gotta look to other options than just the fisheries that we've been fishing for so long, and we have to, be a little bit more inventive about the ways that we continue to make a living on the world's coasts.
Lobster's going to be with us for a long time, but it's not going to be with us in the way it is today, forever. So for me, that's super exciting to think about preventing disaster or helping to absorb some of the shock of that vulnerability. Our company is a first mover in a product that has never been done here in the United States before. Americans have never had fresh kelp, ever. And it's super exciting to have the opportunity to show someone this new product and also have these product forms that make it taste really, really good. So it's really easy to use and people can be educated about it and eat something that they feel good about, that they know is not only doing well for them, but also that it's good for the ocean and good for coastal economies. There's so much to feel good about in eating this product, and being able to add to that it's tasty is something that really drives me.
We're going to wrap the episode up here in Bree's kitchen. She's going to share some family-friendly recipes that are going to get you cooking with seaweed at home. So this right here is just the ready cut.
This is the ready cut kelp. Today, actually, part of that is in our soba noodle salad here. This is before it's blanched and before it's prepared. Once we blanch it,
it turns that bright green.
It turns this bright green color.
You have 3 fermented products. We also know about the value of fermentation for our health, along with building flavor.
This is sea beet kraut. This is sea chi. And this is fermented seaweed salad. It's very alive, it bubbles. It's very much naturally fermented.
What about the nutritional value of kelp?
So it's got more calcium than milk per ounce, which is amazing, right? It's also got a ton of potassium, a bunch of omega-3s, and it also has vitamin D, vitamin B, and iodine.
Bree has cooked a few things for us here.
We have. So these are kelp cubes, and these can be used for just about anything. It's basically that product, but pureed and into single serving size. So we sell them as smoothie cubes, and I've made some here with mango and peach and oat milk and cinnamon. It's delicious. This is just regular buckwheat soba noodles, and I have some sesame, tahini, soy sauce, and shallots on it. And then I mixed it with our ready cut kelp and our sea chi and some cilantro. It's very simple. This is fresh Maine haddock with seaweed butter and kraut.
The haddock is flaky and really, really mild. And it plays so beautifully against that butter with just that hint of the seaweed flavor. I mean, it's just delicious. All of this marries together so beautifully.
Yep.
That's so good. So Bree went to grab her little one, Lachlan. He is a big fan of all these wonderful seaweed flavors.
Would you like some smoothie? Yeah. Moms, they say, like, how do I get my kids to eat seaweed? I'm like, well, it's pretty easy. Put some fruit with it. You got it. In the seaweed salad, I've certainly seen them eat like a quarter of a jar before.
For the recipe for this smoothie, along with all the other dishes that you see here, just head to wearetastemakers.com. You'll find tons of information on Atlantic Sea Farms, along with the other makers we're featuring in this season. Thank you for joining me here in Maine, and thank you, Bree, and thank you, Lachlan. We'll see you next time. Say bye-bye. Can you say bye-bye? Bye-bye. Connect with us online at wearetastemakers.com or through social media on these handles.
Tastemakers was funded in part by
What does a craftsperson look like? Is it this? Or this? Or is it this? Is it possible a craftsperson might also look like this? Edward Jones salutes the makers who share their expertise and take pride in their craft.